So the next strategy that we're going to be talking about is toy talk. This one, we're going back to self-explanatory land, right? So you're just going to kind of personify the toys that you're using with the child, right? Personification, going back to 8th grade English class. This is another strategy that's good for nonverbal kids or kids that don't speak the same language as you. And it's especially great for young kids because you can incorporate those onomatopoeias, which is similar to the the sound play that we talked about during the first week. And this is also a strategy that you can modify, which is really beneficial, right? So some of these strategies, it's just kind of the same across the board for all kids. But for this strategy, you can make it be a little bit easier for the child or a little bit harder for the child, depending on how you feel they are. And also over the course of the semester, you can increase the complexity level. And that's a really important tool to have in your toolbox. I know in undergrad, one of my professors really, really stressed the importance of being able to scaffold, which is where you have one activity, right? And you have maybe 3 different groups. And there's like an easier group, you know, like a lower functioning group, middle group, and then maybe higher functioning or advanced group. And she really stressed the skill of taking one activity, the same exact activity, and adjusting it so that you can use the same activity for all 3 groups, right? But you have to modify it just a little bit to make sure that they're all getting the best input and giving the best output as possible based on their level at the time. So this is one of those opportunities that you're able to start learning scaffolding, which is critical, especially if you're in the schools and you maybe only have time to create a certain amount of activities for the kids, but you're going to have to be able to adjust that same activity throughout a variety of situations and levels. So when to use this strategy: during play-based activity, shared book reading, similar to a lot of the strategies before. Shared book reading, especially if you're using story-related props. And we're going to be shifting our focus next week actually into reading strategies instead of language facilitation strategies. So in about 2 weeks, we're going to be talking more about story-related props, and I think then it'll become more clear how beneficial this strategy can be when used in that context. So the way to use this strategy is it's basically toy-centered self-talk and parallel talk, right? So we talked about self-talk and parallel talk in either the second or third week, which is basically where you're just giving a play-by-play of what either you're doing or the child is doing. But for this, it's going to be narrating what the toy is doing, right? So you're going to pretend like the toy is this living, breathing thing, and you're going to narrate what it's doing, what you're doing with it, what the child is doing with it. It's all focused on that toy. You want to make this as fun as possible because this is a really easy strategy to make silly, and I feel like some of the strategies don't necessarily open up to that opportunity. So for example, if you have a doll and you give the doll a name, you can have a silly word be the name, or you can talk about all the silly things that the doll is doing. And it's really great for nonverbal kids because you can implement non-words like, for example, here, boo, 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 for the toy, if the child is not yet producing language. And then it also allows you to model vocabulary similar to what we talked about with self-talk and parallel talk. So it gives you that opportunity to talk about what's happening in the environment. So the car rolls down the mountain instead of just the car goes down. And it gives you a little bit more control over how complex, this is what I was saying, how complex you're going. So if the child has low language, you might just say, the car goes down. But if you have a more complex child, you could say, wow, Timmy the truck is going up the hill. Look how fast he's going up the hill. Timmy the truck is very fast. And so you can make it as silly as you want, as easy as you want, as hard as you want. But at the end of the day, it's just playing with a toy, you and the child, and talking about what the toy is doing. Here are a couple more examples, which probably will be beneficial for this. So first of all, you should give the toy a name, because then you can use it. It's easier to give a personality and personify something that has a name versus saying like the doll is dressed up. It kind of gives you one step closer to the doll and makes you feel like you're actually interacting with it. It makes the child feel more invested in that toy. So if you're saying Nancy is all dressed up, the child's going to start feeling like, oh, Nancy is my friend, like it's my doll, I like to play with her. And so then you can talk about what Nancy is doing, and Nancy can do all kinds of silly things. You can describe what the toy does. So again, the classic train example, the train goes under the bridge, but you could also push this one step further, as we were talking about scaffolding. So say you're playing with the play set and a doll, or you're playing with like a crib and a bottle, like Nancy is hungry. What should we do? Like Nancy's hungry. And just wait for a minute, and then the child will start feeding her, and then that gives you even more input of, oh, you're feeding Nancy. Thank you. Nancy was so hungry. What a great idea. What should we feed her next? A hot dog? And then that can go on to, a baby doesn't eat a hot dog. Like, that's silly. And then you could also use the sound play with this strategy. So Freddie the Frog says ribbit, ribbit, or the train goes chugga, chugga, choo, choo. So this is just another example of how these strategies overlap and can be used in conjunction with each other. And then another way to make this more fun is to change your pitch, which we're going to talk a little bit more about next week. But whenever you have a character, or in this case, the toy is the character, you're going to want to change your voice for them. And it feels ridiculous. Like the first time you do this, if you've never done it before, you're gonna be like, what am I doing? Like, this is not normal. But it does make it more fun for the kids, and they enjoy it so much. So if you have like a little mouse toy, you could be like, squeak, squeak, squeak. Oh my goodness, like what are you doing today? Or if you have like a big gorilla or something, you're going to talk in a lower pitch. Hello, I am a gorilla and I like to eat bananas. And you see there how silly my voice got. And for you guys, you might be laughing. You might think I'm ridiculous. But for the kids, they love it. They think it's hilarious because they know that's not your normal voice. They know you're being silly, and it makes them want to copy you because they want you to laugh at them, just as they're laughing at you, because they want to get that positive reaction. And the more often they want to talk, the more language you're going to get from them, which is the whole point of these language facilitation strategies. So these